Relative competence. Now, one dimension across which bilingualism is measured is relative competence. This is more specific to bilinguality, that is, bilingualism at individual level than the society level. However, it can be tailored to measure both. Now, what do we mean by relative competence? By relative competence, we mean that how competent a person is in using one language in relation to the other. For instance, if you know 3 languages or 4 languages like Sindhi, English, Urdu, or any other regional language, the question in terms of relative competence will be, do you know all the languages at the same level of competence, or are you more proficient in 1 or 2 languages than the other languages? So this is the distinction that is made on the basis of relative competence. Now, apart from this, we can also, using the same measurement tool, look at whether the person we are looking at as bilingual, is that person a balanced bilingual? That would mean that the person knows 3 languages, but the person has equal competence in all the languages. That is, he or she can read, write, speak very well in all the languages. In that case, we will say that the person is a balanced bilingual. Now, apart from being a balanced bilingual, which I would say is quite unusual, there can also be the instance that a person is dominant bilingual. That means that person has 1 or 2 languages in which he or she is very good at in terms of writing and speaking, while the person might be less proficient in other languages. When we talk about balanced bilinguality, we have said that means that the person has competence in all the languages, equal competence in all the languages he or she knows. Now, however, when we talk about this balanced bilinguality, it is a possibility that these languages are in a state of equilibrium, that they are balanced out very carefully, and it might be that the person is highly competent in both languages, but the case can be reversed, that is, the person knows all the languages, but the person is not highly competent in any of these languages. For instance, somebody can speak Pashto or Punjabi, but the person cannot really speak it to the extent that he or she can be called highly competent. Because when we're talking about competence, the question arises, are we only talking about writing skills? Are we talking about reading skills? Are we talking about speaking skills, speaking and understanding? Or do we mean all 4 skills? So it would be very difficult, and it would be quite unusual if a person is competent in 4 languages to a high degree of competence. So the important thing to remember in that case is that dominance and balance are not equally distributed across all domains and functions. So I was talking about language skills, and now we are talking about their unequal distribution across different domains and functions. Now, what does this mean? This would mean, for instance, you know Urdu and you know English. Now, if you have not studied in an Urdu medium school, you might not be very good in using Urdu to explain academic concepts. And similarly, if you have not studied in an English medium school, you might be very good in using English in certain domains, but you might not be able to use English as proficiently in the domain of academics or in the workplace. So this domain configuration will always be there. There will be a difference in the domain configuration, that is, different languages might be known by individuals and they might be competent in those languages, but the functions or domains within which they can use these languages to a high degree of competence might vary. So, when we talk about dominant bilinguality, we are talking about that a person has competence more than in one language as compared to the other language. Usually, when we are talking about this dominant bilinguality, which I suppose so many of us in Pakistan are, we are talking about a first language and then the learning of the second language. Now, usually it is the mother tongue that a person knows from the childhood or from birth, or to which that person has been exposed a lot and is still being exposed at home, that he or she actually knows to the best. So in dominant bilinguality, it is the mother tongue that becomes the dominant language, and then there are other languages that a person might be exposed to either in the wider community or in a more formal setting of a school.